Hello, my name is Christopher Broadhurst, and this is my presentation on the process of producing plywood and the benefits and drawbacks of plywood versus plywood substitute. This is just a brief overview of the steps taken in the production of softwood plywood, which is typically made from the logs of Douglas fir trees. Once these logs are delivered to the factory, they are left to soak in water for 8 to 48 hours in order to soften the wood before processing. After the bark is peeled off the log using a lathe or hydraulic debarking machine, the log is moved to a veneer peeling lathe, which helps cut a long veneer off the log like a long wooden ribbon. From there, the veneer is cut into manageable sizes and ran through an oven to remove excess moisture from the wood. The imperfections are removed from veneers which have knot holes and scars in their surfaces, and the excess is reattached to other veneer portions that have been cut. From this point, stacking begins, where veneer sheets are covered in filler boards that have been coated in resin. Once the plywood stacks have been assembled, they're moved to a hot press, which puts the layers in close contact while the resin cures the layers together. From this point, the pressed plywood is moved on to where it can be cut to size and cleaned up using panel saws and sanders, which clean up the faces and edges of the plywood sheet. In this slide, we'll see a few of these processes in action. In the first video, we can see the veneer peeling lathe. Then we see the cutting tool, followed by the veneer coming off of the log. After the veneer leaves this section, it moves on to be sheared into manageable sizes and moved through the oven to remove excess moisture. After this, the veneers are inspected for scars and imperfections. Once the scars and imperfections are cut out, the leftover veneer portions are moved on, and we'll see what happens in the next video. In this video, we see the veneer fragments being loaded into a machine after glue's been applied to the edges. From the machine, we see a new veneer surface coming out and being sheared into more manageable sizes. The next video shows the process of stacking veneers and filler boards that have been coated in resin in the cross-graining pattern. We also see the machine that applies the resin to the filler boards. In the last video, we see the hot press, which ensures good contact between all the surfaces between each layer and cures the resin of the filler board so that each layer will be adhered once it leaves the hot press. Once the plywood leaves the hot press, it's then ready to be cut to size and sanded and ready to be sold. Here I've prepared a few categories that show some of the major advantages that plywood has in production as well as in use. When comparing how efficient it is to produce plywood, I've noted that peeling and preparing process. This is because peeling uses most of the log, and the ability to remove knots and scars from solid wood products like 2x4s doesn't exist. However, veneers can have imperfections and scars cut out, and the rest of the sheet won't be wasted. For reliability, I've included cross-graining and curing, which gives the plywood its isotropic properties and ensures that the final product is solid. And finally, the versatility of plywood when used for paneling purposes is an advantage because the alternatives such as metal or plastic products can be very expensive for house framing or even for disposable uses like forming concrete molds in construction. For disadvantages, I've listed that plywood is usually limited to flat surfaces when used as paneling, and it's also only used as paneling in construction, where solid wood products can be used as structural elements. I've also listed that in the production of other goods like furniture, plywood may require a carpenter to form, while other products such as plastics may be injection molded. Finally, the environmental disadvantages of plywood is that in order for plywood to be produced, trees need to be cut down, which leads to loss of ecosystem. Also, the formaldehyde resin used to adhere the boards together uses formaldehyde resins which emit formaldehyde, and formaldehyde is a known carcinogen which can cause cancer in humans and animals. So that is how plywood is produced, as well as a few of its advantages and disadvantages during production and use. These are my sources, and thank you for your time.